This is my family's story about their participation in the Snowy Mountains Hydro Scheme and how living in this very cold frontier multicultural environment shaped us as a family and probably continues to shape and influence ourselves, our children and our grandchildren. The Snowy Mountains Hydroelectricity Scheme started in 1949, just after the Second World War, and the project took 25 years to complete. It's recognised as one of Australia's greatest engineering achievements, and even on the world stage, it's recognised as one of the greatest engineering feats of the 20th century. The scheme was originally set up to deliver both water and electricity, and it successfully delivers over 4,000 megawatts of electricity to 3 states and delivers irrigation water to the Murray-Darling Basin. Over the 25 years of the project, it employed 100,000 people sourced from 30 different countries, and this is my story of my family's participation within the scheme. My first step in this journey is to just go back to where we lived in the Snowy and see it through adult eyes, and so I'm starting this trip by visiting Cabramurra. We're currently in Cabramurra, a small township in New South Wales at the top. It's one of the most elevated townships in the Snowy Hydro Scheme, and we're driving down on its lookout to look out over Kenny's Knot, which is the small construction village that my family moved to in 1956, 7 years after the Snowy Scheme started. Kenny's Knot, where we lived, should come into view in just a moment. It's just over the ridge. It's a small hillock. In the 1950s, right at the base of it was a small construction village. It housed 1,000 people, 950 men, who were mostly migrants sourced from war-torn Europe, 27 women who were of several families that lived within the village, including our own, and approximately 23 children. The migrants in our village were sourced from 27 countries and were mostly single men. There was a good proportion of French and Italian within the community, and most of the men worked as construction workers on the Chimut 1 power station and the Chimut 1 tunnel. We lived here from 1956 to 1958. My father worked as an accountant on the Snowy Scheme, and my mother worked as a postmistress. And although we were only here for 2.5 years, and I was only 3 years old at the time, I have very strong memories of that time. And this journey is about trying to put into context the juvenile memories of a child and understand how this harsh and rugged environment influenced my upbringing, and how my mother, who was only 24 years of age at the time when we lived here, coped with raising 2 young girls in the days before childcare and trying to work full-time as the only postmistress in the camp. In order to understand firsthand the issues faced by families living in the Snowy Mountains in the 1950s, I'm going to visit my mother Nancy, who's now 83 years old and living in a retirement village, and hope that she gives me some insights in what it was like to raise a family in those days. So, Mum, we're going to have a chat about the Snowy and how that impacted your life and how it has subsequently impacted, I guess, all of our lives. How do we end up actually living in the Snowy?
We went up there to get enough money to buy a house outright rather than have a mortgage.
So where did we end up living when we were there?
2.5 miles down into the bush from Cabramurra, and it was 80 miles in from Chimut, and it was 80 miles in from Cooma.
So what was our housing like, and what were the facilities like for you to try and raise 2 children?
When we got up there, the house itself wasn't too bad. It was a 2-bedroom weatherboard that had a lounge room, kitchen, laundry and bathroom. The laundry, you had to go outside to get into it, but it was still there. And they gave me a small camp stove, like a camp oven, and that I cooked on for nearly 2.5 years.
So did you have any other issues with the ice and
Oh.
water and...
Had a lot of issues. One of the issues was in the wintertime, when you wanted to do any washing, you had to go out of your kitchen, get the shovel to dig out the door of the laundry, go in, do your laundry, come back, and we had a heating system that was quite good in that closed eyes. And if you put them outside, one day I was out there sweeping and I saw a leaf on the sheet. So I took the handle of the broom and went to knock the leaf off the sheet, and the sheet split in two because it was frozen solid.
And I remember the bath.
Oh, the bath. The bath was what Dad had to do before we went to work. Before he went to work every morning, in the middle of the winter, was open the bathroom window, shovel the bath full of snow, and of course the bath full of snow is only 2 inches of water or 3 inches of water when it's empty. So with the heating in the house, that would melt that snow by lunchtime. When he'd come home again, he'd fill it up again with snow and that water that was in the bottom, and by the time we got home at night there would be probably 6 inches of water in the bath, of which we had to take as much as we could get out and put on the stove, very big, and we put a saucepan, big saucepan on the top of that. Had to be going to heat the water to get the water. The water was already semi-warm, but we used to try and top it up a bit to get a bit warmer to have a bath, and then we had to all use the same water.
And what about food?
The man would come in from Tuma. You'd give them the order. He would go away with it, and in 2 weeks' time he would bring it back. Our milk used to come in from Canberra or Cooma, Canberra via Cooma, and our bread used to come in from Cooma. Now that came in 3 times a week, but there was no refrigerated trucks. There was no bread wrapped up in paper. The bread was just open bread, open truck, covered in dust in the summertime, which you used to get your loaf of bread and give it a few bangs with a wooden spoon to get rid of most of the dust off it. That was bread.
So what was your role within the post office? What did you do?
I was the postmistress.
So you worked full time, and my sister Carolyn was 6 and I was 3. What did you do with us?
It was easy at first because the first year you were able to go to kindergarten at Cabramatta, and Carolyn of course went to school. So you went off to school and kinder in the morning when I went off to work, and when the bus came home in the afternoon, you came in, saw me, and then went home. We'd go home and have lunch, and then I'd take you back with me in the afternoon. If you were very tired, you'd have a sleep in the corner of the post office, which wasn't very big, or you'd go out and play on the front porch.
So what were the worst aspects and the best aspects of the time that you spent in the snowy?
Best aspects, were able to live completely on my salary without touching your father's for the whole time I was employed up there. We still had money to live quite a good life. But the worst aspects were the hardship, not being able to have any friends, not having any time, the continual fear for your children, wondering what was going to happen from day to day, the cold, the intense cold, and the loneliness, I suppose.